We are here in South Florida checking out the biggest environmental restoration project in American history, and we're going behind the scenes to show you how it's all happening right now. Welcome to the Florida Everglades. Covering over 4,000 square miles, this massive, slow-moving river system flows only about 100 feet daily. Beginning in the north with the massive Lake Okeechobee, water moves south through the famous Everglades National Park, eventually reaching the ocean. And while it may only seem like a giant alligator-infested swamp, it's one of America's most important wetlands and ecosystems. Not only does the water support over 2,000 species of plants and animals, including endangered species like the Florida panther, but it also feeds the Biscayne Aquifer, which supplies drinking water to the entire population of Miami. This is where the star of today's show, the United States Army Corps of Engineers and the EAA Reservoir, comes in. Once complete, this project and the others within the $25 billion effort will ensure the Everglades and the people of Florida have water for future generations. Before we see the action, let's start with a history lesson. In the early 1900s, word got out that Florida was a nice place to call home. As the state's population grew, so did the need for buildable land and farmland. The issue, as mentioned, the place was a swamp. To drain everything, a huge system of canals and levees were built, sending water east and west towards the ocean. The good news was that it worked, and the bad news was that it worked. Estuaries and wetlands would receive too much water during wet seasons and would dry out during others. And the area drying out wasn't only a problem for native plants and wildlife, it also threatened underground freshwater aquifers due to something called saltwater intrusion. In short, as people overpump groundwater, seawater can take its place, spoiling the entire aquifer. To remedy the issue, the United States Army Corps of Engineers, Florida state agencies, and many dirt world contractors are performing major surgery to restore the natural flow of water from Lake Okeechobee to the Everglades, ensuring year-round water delivery throughout the ecosystem. The crown jewel of the new system is the EAA Reservoir project, which will function as a giant bathtub. Thanks to new canals and pump stations, the state will fill the reservoir during the wet season. And when there's a lack of rain, they can slowly let the water out, feeding the Everglades. We're about to show you everything about the project, but first, you may be wondering what the heck the United States Army is doing here. Well, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has built and maintained critical U.S. infrastructure since 1802, focusing primarily on waterways. Not only do they oversee massive construction projects like this one, but they also manage flood control, coastal protection, and waterway maintenance projects from coast to coast and worldwide. They're military-led, which is why our host is in uniform, but civilian-driven, with about 40,000 technical experts providing engineering and construction oversight. Military leadership brings federal authority, accountability, and safety standards to projects of national importance, while private industry performs the actual construction. I've heard about this project for years, so when the Corps invited us out, we packed our bags and flew to Miami. We left town early to meet Senior Construction Control Representative Michael, who took us to the perfect spot to watch the stunning sunrise. Well, that's nature for you. Despite the conditions, the crews were starting the day with safety meetings and stretch and flex. After getting the lay of the land with Michael and John, we set out to see the actual project with Major Corey Bell, who is the Deputy Commander for South Florida. Because of the enormity of the project, driving anywhere took a while. But we didn't mind at all because it gave us time to look for wildlife that will soon call this new reservoir home.
Alright, how about that?
Ooh, yeah.
Gator number one.
No pictures, please.
Oh, he's back down.
Yeah.
We're gonna do the alligator shuffle. Yeah.
After seeing a few large lizards, we stopped at one of the active foundation prep areas where crews will eventually place embankment to form the reservoir.
So the reservoir, the Everglades Agricultural Reservoir, A2 reservoir, is to hold water and then release it through a storm treatment area, STA, to produce the water quality that's necessary for the Everglades National Park.
And how big is the reservoir here?
So this reservoir is 10,500 acres, but the embankment will be 32 feet tall, which will allow to hold 260 acre feet of volume.
260,000
acre feet of volume.
Okay, that's
massive. It's huge.
Well, this project is huge. It really only involves a few simple steps. First is the foundation prep. That means stripping off all of the organic material brought down by Lake Okeechobee to expose the solid lime rock underneath. Then comes cleaning with sweepers, vac trucks, blowers, and by hand to get the rock squeaky clean. Step 2 is pouring the foundation layer to fill the voids in the lime rock and achieve an engineered surface. While similar to everyday concrete, this stuff is CLSM, or controlled low-strength material. Next is the first layer of embankment. Crews excavate and process it on site, then dozers and rollers place and compact it. The result is a clean, smooth surface. After that begins the cutoff wall. Using special machines, crews dig an enormous 60-foot deep trench through the center of the foundation, creating an impermeable layer. This will keep the water from sneaking out. Finally, the embankment wall will rise in 1-foot lifts up to 32 feet high in some areas. Oof, that's a lot of work to do before any water can live here. The initial completion date was 2034. However, thanks to the eagerness of Florida state officials, the project has been accelerated, with completion now slated for 2029. While it was busy during our visit, the number of people and machines working here is about to double. Now that we understand the basics, let's head to the first step, cleaning the natural rock surface. The crews clean the rock by hand, literally on their hands and knees. Cleanliness is essential for a proper bond between the foundation and the future embankment, so no rock is left behind. This is one of the more critical aspects of the project. You can't just build your structure atop a poor foundation, as the foolish man did. Building upon sand is never a good principle. Here in Florida, building upon absolute mush, not a good deal. So they've removed the mush. You can see there's some excavators right there, trucks hauling a lot of that real dark, black, muddy earth off. And then once that's off, we have a broom tractor brooming that surface. This is the existing limestone that is the natural surface. And then for the finishing touches, we have this crew here behind me. They've got a skid steer, they've got buckets, 5-gallon buckets, and wheelbarrows to remove anything from this surface that is not affixed to this natural rock, to get that perfectly clean surface. And then from there, we can start building the structure up little by little by little. Yeah, I think one of them even has a toothbrush. Post scrubbing, they then have to prepare, so that's the natural canvas, but we need as blank of a canvas as possible before the filling begins. This is 4 inches of CLSM, controlled low strength material. It's essentially a weak concrete made up of cement and material mined and crushed and screened on site. We passed the batch plant earlier, so they will lay this out, spread this out, and now we know exactly what's here, and now we're building the rest of the structure upon a very strong foundation. Further up, crews were placing concrete on cleaned areas. Trucks were in constant flow from the on-site batch plant, sometimes even arriving in pairs. Here is the CLSM placement. It's essentially just flow fill. And see, it's 3/8 stone, sand, cement. They are on target, or a good day is about 800 yards of this stuff laid out between 4 and 6 inches. You can see, pretty easy to spread. They just spread it across that clean surface, and then this can receive that material to begin building up the pad for a 2 thumbs up foundation. I'm running out of words. It's the afternoon. Before the next truck, can I get a picture of you guys?
Yes, sir.
All standing together, looking like you like each other? Looking like you're friends? All right, you guys This is outside of the really, really fine cleaning area. They're using the vac trucks. The goal, he said, is about 600 feet per week of cleaning to do. They're using these 3 vac trucks to get all the big chunks. And then like we saw earlier, some of the guys with knee pads, 5-gallon buckets, picking up the bigger chunks as well, trying to get anything loose off the surface before that CSLM is placed. CLSM. CLSM. We've seen the first 2 steps, cleaning the rock and then pouring the flat concrete surface. Third step is adding the first few layers of embankment material. Once completed, here's what the finished foundation will look like around the entire reservoir. Now for the cutoff wall, which is one of the most critical parts of the foundation. Extending 30 to 60 feet beneath the native limestone, it creates an impermeable barrier to prevent future water from sneaking out of the reservoir. And on our way, we saw something a bit different.
Yeah, that fire is a sugarcane.
So they burn it?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. There, you know, in the country, we still do burning. Other places in the world are not authorized to do burning, but it burns all this stuff underbrush, and then they come through and then use combines to pick it up. They'll put it on a rail and move it to the processing site. So down on
so they burn it before harvesting?
Yeah, and then they move that over to the sugar mill, strip it, use that as bagasse, it's called. They use that to run the mills, and then they process the sugar on site.
Someone dropped my mixtape again.
Aaron, where'd you put your cigarette?
Back to business. The first step in digging the cutoff wall is slicing through the rock with this massive test mech trencher. It's basically a giant 60-foot chainsaw.
It looks like this. The giant rock cutting machine known as a chain trencher.
Just beyond that giant machine was another giant actively at work, a PC-1250 long-reach excavator. We got the contractors okay before getting a closer look. This will eventually be the base, so the water is where we're standing future state. The water, once there's the giant earthen structure where this excavator is, which I'll talk in a moment, there's a lot of pressure over here, and that water potentially wants to sit and sneak through the existing limestone out of the reservoir. They don't want that. That's where the cutoff wall comes into play. And that's what this custom PC-1250 is doing right here. It has 110 feet of reach. You can see custom boom, custom stick, additional counterweight on the back to keep it a little bit more balanced. And then as he's pulling up that boom and stick, that little baby bucket on the end, but it's a special bucket. You can see those teeth all the way down the back to engage with that rock at the bottom of the cutoff wall. The cutoff wall, it's about 55 feet deep right where they're digging, about 32 inches wide. So it's a wall that's underground. You don't actually see the wall that runs all the way down this end of the reservoir and on 2 sides. So most of the reservoir is surrounded by this cutoff wall. You said 17 miles? 17 miles of this stuff. Their production rate is anywhere between 40 and a few hundred feet a day on a really good day. This right here though is one of the slower parts because it's hard rock. It hasn't been pre-trenched by that giant trencher. So he's having to get in there and really go after it. Before we wrap up here, as he pulls the bucket out, you also notice that solution. That's a bentonite slurry type mixture that they're filling the trench with as they excavate this material out. And that is the material that not only keeps the trench open, but more importantly, forms that cutoff wall. So it will solidify over time. And then once it's past inspection, they can cover it and start building the embankment on top of it. And it's not just all digging. Given that this is such an important project, the testing required for the material is enormous. To do this during the cutoff wall excavation, they lower a sampler to the bottom and then send the sample to one of the on-site labs for testing to ensure the material meets quality standards. And every day they take multiple samples. And they're dropping that in.
They'll drop this device in, and they'll go down and grab a sample. They'll take it back to the lab, time, date, stamp, do analysis on it to make sure it meets the quality. Okay. And then again, you have other inspections, 14 days to make sure it meets the hardness that we need.
This is going to be multiple, but at different times. So they're going to go down first. They're going to do it 45.
Yep.
And then
bring it back up.
Bring it back up, and then they're going to put into orange.
So those are your 3.
Yeah.
That's your sampling system there.
Yeah.
Color
But
bucket.
it was supposed to be red bottom, you know?
Yeah. And then they go do the science stuff in the lab
Yes,
with
and
it.
then they're going
on site. Yeah.
Yeah. The number of tests, material tests, density tests on a job like this.
It's intense.
Oh.
Monstrous.
After seeing the cutoff wall work, we hopped back into the truck to see the beginning of the embankment material production, courtesy of another monster machine, the Dragline. That dragline there certainly is a beautiful sight, but it's nothing compared to the sunrise we got treated to this morning.
What happened, Aaron? Did we?
Well, there's a dragline right there.
Where?
But you can't tell. The newest dragline in America, right there. Like, not even, I could throw a rock to it, but.
Actually, I would bet you $100 you couldn't throw a rock to
I
that.
could throw a rock. Nice. Once the foundation is complete, embankment placement begins. This project calls for over 30 million yards of material to be excavated, processed, and placed. And when you need 30 million yards of material, you need some big equipment. And that's where that bad boy right behind me, that M-Tech dragline, comes into play. Now, Florida uses a lot of draglines for quarrying applications because, as you can see right there with that footage, the water table is very high. So you can't mine it traditionally, or trying to dewater it, too much energy, too much time, not all that possible. So they use these draglines, which allows them to mine the material under the water table, pile it up in those neat piles, let the water drain out, and then allow for conventional mining with excavators, trucks, hauling that material to the processing facility. This machine in particular is owned by North American Mining, a friend of BuildWitt. And that dragline right there is America's newest. It's very rare to have a brand new machine. That is one right there, M-Tech from, I believe, Holland. And it's equipped with over a 20-yard bucket, perforated specifically for this application right here, mining within the water. How much material do you have to produce for the embankment?
It's millions of cubic feet to be able to process. We have batch plants on site processing that material, prepping the material to be used for the bentonite slurry, the cutoff oil slurry. Different parts of the embankment have different things. So you have a drainage field that's in it, you have drainage, you have the cutoff wall. There's just different phases and different things that we're looking at. And you have to know the material, make sure it meets our spec. It's going to last for decades upon decades when this project is completed. There's always an end user with a project.
They're the customer,
and they are the customer. It's South Florida Water Management District is our end user and customer. That operate on behalf of the state of Florida.
It's time for Gators. Gator Watch. Once we had our dragline filled, we loaded back into the truck and headed to one of the many crushing plants on site to see how they process all the excavated material. The major operations, like with the dragline that pulls the material out, stockpiles it, ends up with real chunky stuff that's not suitable for the levee, for the actual retaining structure for the reservoir. If you made it with this, well, this doesn't hold water all that well. You need engineered material, and that's where crushing operations on site like this one come into play to create really nice, uniform material that is to the specific specifications required for each section of that wall area. So they have on-site crushing spreads like this, producing over 90% of the material, all from this area for use in this project. So it is going from this right here to this right here. We're at spec now. This material can now be used to build that structure. Chunky, baby. All right. I will also say another important point. Every crushing spread on site is mobile because the site is so big. They move the crushing spread to where this material will be used. So all this material, after it's tested and proven that it is exactly to spec, it will be used in this surrounding area. And once they've made enough material here, they'll move this entire crushing spread. You can see the conveyors, the crushers, the screens, all of that. It's on tracks. They'll move it to the next area, crush the material needed in that next area closer to where they'll eventually place it. This is another one of the crushing and screening setups that they have here. He said it's running about 400 tons an hour right now, producing 3-inch minus, which is that pile right there, to meet the demand of how much they're consuming every day. They have to produce about 16,000 tons of material every single day just to keep up with the overall consumption on the site. So this is all material that is mined from the site, is now being crushed and will be used here on site. When I'm out and about in the gator-infested swamps in the Florida Everglades, I only trust Ariat to keep my toes from becoming dinner for some dinosaur. Shout out to Ariat, our channel sponsor. The reservoir, future reservoir, will be a giant bathtub. They are building it up from the existing ground, which means water doesn't flow up, it flows down. So they have to take the water from the inflow-outflow canal, which was previously excavated in the previous years, and then pump it up to fill the bathtub. And then when the time to let the water out occurs, they can use gravity for that. But to pump it, you need a massive pump station, and this is the main pump station here on site. So this hole here, this will, once it's completed in the next few years, be an enormous structure, a complex structure to ultimately pull water from that canal just over there and push it up to fill the entire reservoir. If you look closely at one of the 395s digging for the pump station, you'll notice that it has a spicier bucket than usual. Perfect for breaking up rock. You don't see these too often. And on our way out, we got a little treat. While we didn't get to see the massive test mech trencher working, we did get to see this mean machine, a surface miner munching away. Shout out to the Eastern Indigo, that's not the one, to the U.S. Army and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for having us out. This was a fantastic visit. I hope you enjoyed it. Please comment, please subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Stay dirty, everybody.